President Trump's 73 million votes record is a whopping 10 million more than he got in his last bid for presidency, based on current data. The president made significant gains with all racial groups, performing particularly well among minority voters. According to the Edison Research exit poll from the 2016 general election, just 8% of Black American voters chose Trump over Clinton. The same Edison Research exit poll this year shows that Black Trump voters have grown to 12%, a 50% increase. For both Black men and women, there are significant jumps. 19% of Black men voted for Trump in 2020 versus 13% in 2016. Just 4% of Black women chose Trump over Hillary Clinton in 2016, but that figure has more than doubled to 9% this year. Among America's 40 predominantly Black counties, Trump received 8% more votes than he did 4 years ago. Trump's performance among Hispanic voters in key battleground states is even more outstanding. According to the New York Times analysis based on the National Election Pool by Edison Research, Trump's votes in the nation's 47 counties with a Hispanic majority went up by 37% from 2016 to 2020. In America's 32 large counties with a majority-minority population, Trump received 30% more votes this election than he did in 2016. One of the biggest jumps in votes for President Trump was in Miami-Dade County of Florida, where at least 200,000 more people voted for Trump compared to 4 years ago. That county is home to a significant population of Cuban Americans, many of whom resonate with the president's tough stance on socialism and the communist Cuban regime. Trump's votes in Florida went up from 49% in 2016 to 51.2% in 2020, doubling his win margin. Trump's growing popularity among Hispanic voters is similarly significant in southern Texas, in traditionally Democrat counties bordering Mexico. Zapata County, for example, where nearly 95% of the population is Hispanic, voted for Trump by 52% to 47% over Biden, although the county voted for Hillary Clinton over Trump by 65% to 32% back in 2016. Among Asian Americans, Trump voters have also grown noticeably, from 27% in 2016 to 34% this year. Trump's anti-communist message has also resonated with many immigrant communities that have suffered under communist regimes in Asia.
So you have it there, 10.8 million. I'd like to thank and credit the EPOCH Times for this story of the 10.8 million votes that came out. There's another story that came. Federal judge dismisses Trump campaign lawsuit to delay certification in Pennsylvania. Judge Matthew W. Brann, the judge presiding over the case. Brann, a former nominee of former President Barack Obama, so he's on the left, said the Trump campaign should have come to court armed with more compelling legal arguments and factual proof of rampant corruption. I don't buy that for a second. I believe that every single Democrat judge, basically, they're going to get the call of a chit to say something for the Democrats, which is no matter what you do, do not rule in favor of Trump's legal counsel ever. And I believe that, because if the Democrats are going to corrupt the system entirely, they definitely will have many Supreme Court judges, judges in their pocket. So Giuliani doesn't think that this is a concern. This is more like a stepping stone to get us to the Supreme Court. So, like, if I may speak my opinion for a minute, I don't believe that Giuliani or Sidney Cowell are lying people. I believe that they obey the letter of the law. They're like William Barr. And when they say that we have a lot of evidence, we have affidavits, we have the testimony of thousands of witnesses under penalty of perjury, that means that's as close to a sure thing as they've got. And that's as close to a sure thing when it comes to the law until it's overturned in court. And just because a judge rules against them doesn't mean anything. In fact, it proves a systemic corruption made by the Democrats over many judges that can be bought. And I am not going to disregard the fact that they keep on insisting that almost 700,000 ballots are cast illegally, and that their evidence spans more than just the counting of ballots incorrectly with a proper Republican representative there to ensure unbiased. I believe that their case against Dominion is very telling. Sidney Powell made it very clear that the big tech and Dominion systems have done this in the previous election to corrupt, I think it was Texas, if I'm not mistaken. Or Georgia. It might have been Georgia, actually. The problem with this, if enough Supreme Court judges rule against them, the case is dead. However, if they can get a judge that will simply listen to the evidence and permit them to make a case out of it, because there are several, I think they said that there were 3 big lawsuits that were going on right now, and then later on this week they're going to file more. So my hope is that, see, this is more than just a court case or something of that sort. An ordinary case will not define what this is. This is a fight for America's soul. And if good people come forward and tell the truth, then America's soul can be won again. But if they don't, and if there's enough people who are willing to lie to themselves, and I'm being literal here, the perpetrators will be the judges if this thing gets thrown out. They will be the ones responsible for the loss of America's soul. But if it goes to the Supreme Court and this thing gets overturned, then you can say that the soul of America cannot be bought. There's still enough good people. It's not going to be like Sodom and Gomorrah where you turn your back on them and that's it. Basically, if the country can be redeemed, it'll be because of the actions of a few individuals that were willing to tell the truth. And that's as simple and as perfect as it can be, literally. Giuliani, and I hate to make too many references to the Bible, but Giuliani and Sidney Powell and the team of Trump are walking the way of the cross. You think about it when there's this warning in the Bible about blessed are you for those who those that are persecuted for standing up for me. Blessed are you. Those who lose their life for my sake. Jordan Peterson explained that you cannot look at Christ as just a man. Christ is the truth. And when he says, blessed are you who are persecuted for the sake of the truth, and who suffer for the truth, blessed are those people. They are the truly righteous. They're not the fake righteous like what the left are today, where they're like the Pharisees in a sense. They go about their business in the streets, making as much noise as possible to show how they suffer, and to get the pity and the admiration of the public for their deeds. And that's the kind of pseudo suffering that they walk around with, so that they can walk around with a sense of entitlement and essentially worship, but mostly entitlement. That's what the left are doing right now. They're the ones who control a lot of the power, and yet they're playing the victim and pretending that they're weak, when they're truly the snake under the surface of the water, or the crocodile maybe. But they're one of the horrendous. They are the horrendous swamp creatures, essentially. But all I can say is this: Joe Biden could never win this country on the base of merit. All you have to do is look at him, how he behaves in public, and no rational person, in my estimation, would ever vote for him. Maybe an ignorant person would vote for him, but not if they saw how he behaves in public and how he behaves when he thinks cameras are not running. He verbally assaulted, and I think a little bit physically assaulted voters that he was trying to win over at a factory. He insulted the gentleman and condemned the gentleman for his status in where he works, and he was condescending all the way. In addition to, when he speaks and it's not a pre-prepared argument or statement, then he acts senile. He starts mumbling, starts to lose his train of thought, and then picks up somewhere off, and after a tangent comes back, and it's a very sporadic kind of speech, and there's no coherence. So I could say with confidence that anybody that looks at Trump or Biden unbiased and makes a decision about who's more the competent individual, Trump wins all the way. It's not even a comparison. Hillary Clinton was an absolute corrupt scumbag, but she at least was able to string together something. She's getting quite old now as well, but it doesn't matter. The time she was running, she was still able to handle it, not well. None of her arguments really made a lot of sense in terms of actual rationally argumenting, but she was still, I guess you could say, her mind is still there somewhat. So much more than Biden. But I don't want to give that woman too much credit. I want to give Trump credit. Essentially, Trump is a touchstone stuck with me. Basically, what it means is that anything that he touches, corruption gets exposed. And you couldn't ask for a better hero to empty out the swamp and to end the Democrat corruption in the United States. Basically, Trump has been there from the beginning and seen the country go down and down and down until he took office. And he knows the crimes of the Democrats better than anybody, because he's watched very carefully throughout history about what infractions they've committed. And he's known it very intimately, being on the kind of business that he is, a real estate, and knowing politicians and essentially keeping his eye open to study how things work. Because his business depends on predictability and getting ahead of the curve. So he has to be there at the front line, essentially, to be able to make money out of his business. And he did. He didn't lose. He's a very successful businessman. And that's because he kept his ear to the street and kept his eyes open and observed very carefully what officials were doing in government. And I can say that with absolute relatability that he had a deep anger about what was happening under Obama and a deep hatred of that person, as I do, because Obama signified the pinnacle of American corruption. And what we're seeing now is a tragic consequence of that man being in power and his government having full control of power. Do you remember that the debt ceiling had to be raised, what was it, 5 or 6 times in government? That they were going to shut down, and they did shut down, I think once or maybe 3 times. For me, I have to go back to the papers and figure out exactly what it was. But I'm sure people that were there remember the debt ceiling had to be keep raising it. Guess who was responsible for that? Joe Biden. Joe Biden put the proposition in place, and then they passed it. The debt ceiling has to be raised. The American debt keeps going up and up and up and up, and government can't function, and they'll be forced to shut down unless we raise the debt ceiling. Like, you couldn't ask for more fiscally irresponsible government unless you look at Justin Trudeau. But Trump came in to restore order, balance, fairness, justice, a sense of national pride, to answer for the heart pangs of wounded Americans that had their sense of morale diminished. Obama is the person responsible. Hillary Clinton is a person responsible. Bill Clinton is a person responsible. Joe Biden is a person very, very much responsible for that tragic fate. And what I believe them to be are examples in history in which we must use as sort of like a cautionary tale for future generations to beware of people like that. They come in under the pretense of compassion or helping the people. And they come in and they act like robbers. In the case of Bill and Hillary Clinton, they were actual robbers of the White House, selling off paintings, furniture, and whatnot. The prestige of America was gone under Obama. And under Donald Trump, it came back. And it was elevated to exactly how he used to say it, to stuff that we've never seen before. And America became feared again. America de facto became a superpower again. What Biden wants and what the Democrats want is to yield the country to everybody, especially to China, but especially to the rich and the powerful, like Facebook executive and the Twitter executive, to people like that, to George Soros, to people like this. And we should fear that outcome more than anything. Those people don't wish anything well for common people. They do care about power and they care about money. And that's it. So Trump being the enemy of such people. Trump, if you had to explain Trump in a word or a sentence, person who loves his country. This is a person faithfully devoted to the United States of America. And I see that because that's what his actions show. Every time he does something that's for strengthening America, economic strengthening, the capacity for America to protect itself, that's borders, increasing the power of the military after Obama nearly bankrupted them and fired most of the staff. Literally firing, but also I guess you could say that they were parking their warships in port, and then I guess the American Navy was forced to slowly retire or discharge their troops. Many aspects like that. But Obama, forget about Obama. Trump, essentially, everything he's doing is a step-by-step process to strengthen America and to weaken the communist hold over America. And why I call him a touchstone is because he was able to expose that communism that's been hidden for years. The underground movement of Antifa and well, I guess publicly now, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter may have started as a pretense for helping black people, but that's only because they don't want you to challenge them. Antifa was at the root of it, and you can see them every time they protest. They're designed to keep underground, to keep anonymity, so to speak, in the tide of a huge crowd like that. Some people come to protest on legitimate grounds, but Antifa basically hides among them like wolves amongst sheep. So essentially, as I said before, this is a fight for America's soul. And if America can be bought, Joe Biden will win. But if America can't be bought and enough individuals stand up for the truth, then Trump will win. Thank you.